Fail stepped onto the side road. Nothing to do now but wait. He deposited his armor and weapons in the room at the inn, leaving only a green tunic, brown trousers, and a nondescript dagger that wouldn't draw a second look. Now that it was closer to lunchtime, the low roar of the crowd carried over from the market square. He went in the opposite direction, his pliable shoes making no sound on the cobbled road. One could learn a lot about a city in its taverns and markets. These alluring spaces, lovingly tended, put the hopes and passion of its people on display. A bustling square would always be filled with the finely dressed, with shy lovers, with rosy-cheeked children squealing at colorful displays, with hopeful merchants peddling goods aided by the aromas of fresh pastries or savory stews. The best any city offered. A shiny, almost gaudy surface. Fail sought something else. When poking around for information, it was better to look from the bottom up, to first ask those who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Beggars, street sweeps, and the like would be too cowed or too grateful to mention his curiosity to anyone. After following the increasingly smaller paved streets down to packed earthen alleyways, so cramped he could brush his outstretched hands on either side, he came upon two cloaked figures, one walking behind the other. The first, a woman with impossibly long red hair, swiveled her head around as if trying to get her bearings, while the second stalked behind. Fail's steps faltered, years of bloodshed-honed instinct rearing its head. The woman didn't make it to the mouth of the alleyway. The figure behind her reached up to wrap their hand around her hood and ripped it back, twisting as they did so. The woman's knees buckled and she fell with a violent gasp. Desperate hands struggled against the restriction at her throat, breath cut down to a wheeze. But she froze in fear as the attacker spoke. "I need your coin purse," the voice broke, panicked, young. "Please," it trembled. "Toss it behind us on the ground, miss." "Let her go," Fail called, annoyed. Had the attacker not seen there was a witness? Surely they'd flee now they were caught. The woman squeaked as her attacker yanked her around, angling himself to Fail with her in between. With his free hand, he angled a short blade under her ribs. "This has nothing to do with you, sir." His voice rose an octave, but his eyes glistened with tears and angry determination. His hood fell, revealing red-tipped ears and plump, ruddy cheeks. Shit! He was barely more than a child. Fail drew his dagger with practiced ease. "I'm only going to give you one warning."
"Don't."
The woman's strangled plea barely made it past the noose of her cloak. She batted away tangled hair, fumbling with something at her waist. Once the purse relented, she tossed it behind them. The boy threw her forward in a rush, and she fell onto her hands. It gave Fail a perfect shot. As the young thief turned to grab the purse, he threw a dagger, slicing the boy's calf to bring him down rather than impaling him. Fail approached warily, but the thief didn't try to stand. Blood bloomed on his pants, and he clutched his legs, biting back a sob. Fail scowled at him. "Do you know what happens to thieves in—" The words were cut off by a second, unlikely attack. The woman shoved him.
"How dare you!"
she snapped, all teeth.
"You could have killed him."
He tried to form a coherent response, but she turned to the boy and knelt to examine his leg. "He's fine," Fail said. The woman stabbed at him with an accusing finger.
"Don't."
The word was a command. The boy, to his credit, tried to rein the tears back in, but when she put a gentle hand to his face, they began anew. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's my sister. She's sick, and my dad got taken.
Hush.
She whispered.
Just be quiet for a moment. I need to think. It's gonna be all right.
Fail looked to the sky in disbelief when the young man closed his eyes and rested his head on her palm. She took a few deep breaths, and he mirrored her, his trembling easing with every long exhale. Fail scooped up his dagger and tucked it away. The woman murmured under her breath, but he couldn't hear. Then he saw the magic. One hand held the boy's face, and the other glowed over the wound, the light dancing across his leg and up her arm. In a matter of moments, his pained expression eased, and the woman sat back with a heavy sigh. "I'll fetch the guard," Fail declared to no one, though doing so would come with its own risks for him. There was little chance he would be recognized, but being roped into answering tricky questions by Arnell's guard hardly made it onto his list of plans for the day. The woman stood and wavered, her head bowing into a hand as she swayed. A few steps brought Fail close enough to anchor each of her elbows, the soft fabric of her gown wrinkling under his calloused fingers. He was close enough now that his fey senses caught her scent, something warm and slightly floral.
No.
She clenched his arms, steadying herself before looking at him. Her eyes glowed faintly, the magic illuminating them while taking its time to leave her body. It was unnerving and otherworldly, and his breath caught, sticking tight in his chest. She smiled gently at whatever expression he wore, as if to put him at ease, but it only made the sudden tightness clench into something unbearable, made her radiant. He'd let himself get too close. Too close. Well past the point of being polite. He didn't flee. He didn't. He released her and backed away, his heart racing faster than his feet. But he didn't flee. Not when he couldn't tear his gaze from hers. She looked away first. He sucked in a breath. Gods, what was wrong with him? She was moving now, scrambling after the boy who edged away, getting faster the farther he ran.
Wait!
She called as he ran, brandishing her purse. The boy hesitated. She began to count coins, and Fail's heart was in his throat as he watched her hand the remaining purse over, another smile tugging at her lips. The thief hugged her. Hugged her! And she laughed, breathless from the ferocity of it. He grinned, tucking the coin purse against his own belt, but his face blanched as he noticed Fail glowering, and he ran, rounding the corner to disappear into the maze of streets. "Why are you even here?" he asked the woman, irritation rising as the concern ebbed away. "You could have been killed." She whipped her head to him, and, too late, he thought, to check his tone. He didn't usually deal with civilians. Instead of wilting, though, she squared herself to him.
I'd have deserved it for my foolishness, I suppose?
She asked, and her tone left him wondering if she didn't believe exactly that. It also left him wondering how exactly he became the bad guy. She folded her arms, and his eyes tracked the blood on her sleeve. She looked down and stilled, her face growing pallid, her neck bobbed.
Then walk with me, just to the main road.
Stricken, Fail nodded, his heart in his throat as he approached. Of its own volition, his hand rose to run calloused fingers over the angry red of her neck. She watched him, brow wrinkled in a silent question. His attention moved from his wayward fingers to the look in her eyes, but it was banished as she ducked her head and took a graceful step back. Caught in her gravity, Fail followed, matching the movement, his hand still in the air. Exhaustion clouded her now almond-colored eyes, the vibrant glow of them having dissipated. Full lips parted in surprise at his boldness, and her cheeks flushed a pretty pink from the adrenaline, or the fear, or maybe... "I seem to have forgotten myself," Fail said, wrenching his hand down and taking a quick step back. Heat crept up his neck, but he tried to hide it by offering a courtly bow. When he straightened, she'd regained her composure as well, spine set, fatigue pushed away. She inclined her head with graceful forgiveness as he offered an arm. She leaned on it a bit more heavily than expected, resting against him.